When the Chargers drafted Justin Herbert 5 years ago, it took one of the team doctors accidentally puncturing the lungs of starter Tyrod Taylor for the 6th overall pick to get onto the field. Yet he'd never relinquished that job, instead setting then rookie record numbers. In year 2, he became the first ever quarterback in franchise history to throw for over 5,000 yards, which was followed up by securing his first trip to the playoffs, only to find himself on the wrong end of the biggest postseason comeback in NFL history. After momentarily becoming the highest paid player ever that offseason, Ellie had a down year in which he fractured his index finger, which led to the firing of head coach Brandon Staley, who was consequently replaced by Jim Harbaugh. While everyone thought the Bolts and offensive coordinator Greg Roman would heavily rely upon the run game, they actually struggled to consistently move the ball through that avenue, and Justin needed to be surgical, with 25 total touchdowns compared to only 3 interceptions, to help his team win 11 games. Unfortunately, he matched the pick total in the wildcard round loss at Houston, probably his worst game as a pro, when they felt completely overmatched on offense. With his Pro Bowl left tackle Rashawn Slater being put on injury reserve shortly before this season, my expectations for them dropped, yet Herbert has been absolutely slinging it around and felt in more control of the operation than ever, having already defeated 2 divisional opponents to start the season off with a 2-0 record, and he's at the height of his powers right now. Let's review together what he's done so far. This first clip comes after a big run and catch play to Quentin Johnston, where the Chargers leaked him into the flats of play action, so Herbert comes back to him to finish off the opening drive with a touchdown on 3rd down. They come out in a tight bunch to the left, motion the back the other way, and run a mesh concept in order to defeat man coverage. As they also release the back into the flats across his original alignment. What this does is it creates traffic over the middle of the field, where the corner of a QJ in Trent McDuffie will run into a linebacker who isn't actually even responsible for the back here, as the Chiefs use a banjo rule on him depending on which way he goes. But what I do like from the quarterback's perspective is that he's not only patient in how he allows this all to happen, but since it's 3 over 3 to the left side, that leaves the other safety as the deep help theoretically, and as we let this roll, Herbert forces him to sit in that spot rather than trying to pick up the trash here and potentially contest this at all. McDuffie's gonna fall down, and it's a nice catch of a ball for a receiver that has had some drop issues in his early career. Watch it again from the endzone angle and focus on Herbert's eyes. First looks at this sort of triangle that they're building over the middle. Hitches up towards the over in case that defender gets caught up in traffic himself, but then immediately flips his head as he sees McDuffie fall down in his peripheral vision and doesn't waste time to reset for his soft toss to Johnston for 6. After having a short yardage run stuffed and going 3 and out, Ellie comes out in his 21 personnel, cutting converted D-tackle Scott Matlock as a fullback, who they set in short motion just before the snap in order to give him a running start as they fake like an FG power play, and often it's basically a 3-level concept with QJ on the high 7, you've got Lyle McConkey on a simple bubble to bind the flat defender, and then they're really trying to hit Tyler Conklin on his cross-off play action. Pretty easy throw, but I just wanted to illustrate how the Chargers have run a lot of stuff where they've either booted Justin off zone action or just moved the launch point for him. As they did here, again rather soft toss to the tight end. Conklin fumbles at the end here, but thankfully it goes out of bounds. On the very next snap, it's a much more challenging throw, but unfortunately Keenan Allen drops this one. Now in 11 personnel, initially have this tight bunch to the right, motion Lyle McConkey across into a 2x2 set, tight end offset to the right with the back also flanked that way. As they have this levels element to the twin side, the other way you've got the back swinging out to the flat, and Conklin on this little angle off the chip, and Keenan on the corner route. Because KC bails out the linebacker and they just sit in cover 2, Herbert doesn't like the quick into the field, so he instead flips the other way. The corner thinks they have this covered because he is gaining depth, but there's just too much air in the coverage, and the quarterback puts it right on the money at the sideline, away from the safety, but unfortunately the veteran receiver can't bring it in. Again, here's the end zone view, pretty wide one from his Brazil game, to where you see the full picture once more. Again, watch Herbert progress from the twins to the short side. Corner is totally caught off guard because this requires a perfect throw, but that's what he delivers. Let's really beef up now. 21 personnel in theory, but the one tight end by alignment is actually a 6th offensive lineman, while Conklin is lined up as an offset fullback to the left the opposite way, so obviously heavy run alert for the defense. with day 3 rookie Keandre Lambert-Smith as the only de facto wide receiver on the field. Yet with Matlock once again in motion, they actually go heavy play action. With a flood concept into the boundary, Herbert's gonna turn his back to the opposition, and now is conkling on the mid-level along with Omer and Hampton into the flats. Justin could just take the layup to his rookie back, but he knows the wide receiver basically runs into the boundary safety, and he takes the deeper option here for a 17-yard gain. Next drive, after Keenan Allen can't quite finish a catch against tight coverage, both on 3rd and 7, motion from 2x2 into trips from 10 personnel, meaning they have 4 wide receivers and the 1 back on the field. Chiefs want to man up again here, as they try to overload the offense's left side, but peel off the D end the opposite way, while playing cover 1 behind it, as they jam number 3 and have Pressman on the outside, although the corners use different techniques. The best throw here because of this is the slightly deeper in-cut by McConkey as the number 2 on his levels concept, while the backside glance or short post should run right into the safety. Number 27 has to play with outside leverage and this cushion here as they start in a too high look. Herbert on a short drop puts it right on Ladd as he gets out of his break, slightly behind him in order to not lead him into the linebacker potentially. Great job by Ladd to finish this, and they convert. Still in this 4 wide receiver set, in a super narrow 3x1 here initially on this 3rd and 6. They motion Keenan out wide for more of a classic presentation, but what this pretty much ensures is that the corner will have outside leverage, and because it's not Trent McDuffie trailing over number 2 initially, it's most likely zone coverage, more specifically some kind of 2 deep base. This is actually an interesting little tweak from the Chiefs, as Nick Bolton bumps us out a little bit, and I guess McDuffie becomes the pole runner in Tampa 2, even though he's basically matched up with number 3 on the seam route. Yet it also provides more space underneath, when LA uses this quasi-rub play, with number 2 on the spot route outside, and Keenan going underneath on a quick slant. Nice call to move the chains by Greg Roman, and I guess also the passing coordinator Marcus Brady, who has added a few new wrinkles through their dropback designs. They end up with a field goal shortly before halftime, and when the Chargers come out of that break, they go 3 and out, as Quentin Johnston can't come up with a nice fade ball, although a holding call would have cancelled it anyway. So when the Chiefs almost tie the game, if not for a missed PAT, Zach is about to set up LA for another quick stop. So here on 3rd and 15, they need a big boy throw from the quarterback. KC defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo changes up the look on the back end quite a bit here. Initially 2 safeties high, they basically swap the nickel and the safety into the boundary, making it look like Tampa 2 once more, but it's actually cover 1 robber, where you've got number 21 Jaden Hicks dropping down and patrolling the middle of the field, while on the other side, pretty much all you have is this combination of a deep corner and a deep out or sail route, along with a deep in cut from the backside, and the back and the tight end flaring out to the right after initially staying in protection. Herbert initially opens towards the 2-man concept in order to make the robber number 21 open that way and be able to throw a laser to QJ, who if he gets vertical here straight away, gets past the marker. He instead tries to go across the field, and it takes a run to convert on 4th and 1, but a phenomenal throw with a quarterback to set this up. One more time from the endzone angle, watch the eyes and what they do to number 21 as you have all this late rotation going on. Just enough to hit this behind him. Big time stuff. On 1st and 10 after this, the Chargers come in 20 personnel theoretically, with Matlock as the wingman to the right, and they motion Keenan across to a double wing look basically, and fake split zone to the right with basically a 2-man concept, QJ stemming inside on the high 7, and Ladd pushing up on the deep over route, along with Allen releasing into the flat slate as a check down option, as they anticipate another single high structure from KC. That's what they get as the boundary safety steps down against the run fake. Justin sets up the deep drop, and then on the throw slightly post on McConkey rather than leading him up the field, where the trailing corner might have a chance. To be honest though, Ladd did such a great job on the vertical stem that it wasn't even necessary, but that's what I generally prefer. When they get to 3rd and 3, Chargers now 11 personnel, tight end motioning over into this condensed 2x2 look. I believe the Chiefs get caught in a busted coverage here, as they show the potential for heavy pressure, as they could theoretically bring everyone but these 2 outside corners, yet they actually bail out the deep middle safety, and with how the corners initially turn, It looks like a pretty clear sign for cover 3, only it appears that the corner and the nickel number 21 Hicks once again exchange responsibility, as he'll hand off McConkey into the flats and carry Keenan on the corner route. He's late to turn and run with him after jamming Ladd, and Herbert lays it out there for number 13. After the Chiefs answered with a touchdown of their own, both still up 2018, they need to keep adding to it because Patrick Mahomes and company are in a groove themselves. So now on 3rd and 7, we've got some Spags psychopath stuff, as number 21 once again moves up with the tight end on a little motion outside, with LA basically swapping numbers on his condensed 2x2 set, indicating it could be man coverage. But then check out what happens on the back end as they move Nick Bolton down into the quarterback's cadence. Boundary safety drops down into the middle, the other one slowly replaces him, and the nickel bails out into a deep spot, as they actually bring the slot defender to the tight end side, slant it to the lineman over there inside, and peel off the end the opposite way. So a lot going on, call it cover 6 on the back end, I guess. But basically what's important to note here is that you have these 4 DBs playing top down, and ultimately really only 2 defenders underneath, of which one is a D lineman, so they throw a lot at Herbert, but as the Chargers have the tight end on a corner route, and the 3 receivers curling up around the first down marker, this supercomputer back here understands that the Chiefs just can't cover these guys underneath. So it takes great field vision, but he simply hits Keenan on the hook between the corner and his middle zone defender. He turns upfield and moves the chains. Huge conversion. And after a couple more first downs, the Chiefs get impatient, although the Chargers coaching staff deserves credit for understanding the moment and what happens when they offer a condensed short side of the field, as they motion Ladd towards the field, with the tight end only eligible into the boundary, while pulling this left guard as part of a specific protection scheme. Whether it's the corner or the linebacker in this case now rushing off the edge, as you've got the nickel the opposite way already shuffling inside for his blitz, you know that Spags is bringing the house. Herbert understands that as they switch release this, whether Casey passes this off, and now he has inside leverage on the field side safety, or Hicks is getting punished again having to pick up Johnston on the deep crosser on basically a free vertical design, if the quarterback just buys enough time and puts air underneath the ball, that defender is not going to be able to hang with number 1. So that's exactly what he does, takes that deeper drop, Hicks has to flip his hips, flicker the wrist from Herbert, and it's over. 23-yard touchdown. Finally, as Casey answers again, you can tell what level of confidence Harbaugh's staff has in Herbert, as they let him drop back twice before the 2-minute warning. He can't quite escape on the first one and gets sacked, but then on 3rd and 14, they come out in this reduced trip set to the left once more, and run another flood concept out of it, along with a backside dig. I have no idea why QJ doesn't realize he must take the inside release. Chiefs are going to be all over this field side combination, and the dig is pretty much dead, even if the safety doesn't position himself optimally to bracket this. So instead, Justin sees the end jump inside, nobody else out there to account for him, in what I'd label 2-man, as he goes around Chris Jones and outraces the defense for a game-sealing conversion. Love that slide at the end as well. One more time from the quarterback's perspective, he understands that the Chiefs line up Jones over the most questionable guy up front in Trey Pipkins at right tackle, and love rushing him off the edge anyway. But as he peeks down and sees him jump inside, that is still a D tackle having to track down a great athlete, and he's not quite fast enough. So Herbert takes matters in his own hands and makes it happen. Let's now move on to week 2 against the Raiders, where they initially settle for a field goal off a Geno Smith interception, but then I really like how they present this on first down, starting in a 2x2 with a tight end offset to the left. They motion him across, reset, and now move Ladd inside for another switch release, where QJ is simply lifting off the top of the coverage from McConkey to have space on a steep sail route, while the tight end chips and release to the flats, and theoretically they have a deep in cut from the opposite side. Because I'm an absolute sicko, I went down the rabbit hole of checking if this came up at all for the Raiders in week 1, and while I couldn't find it exactly, the Patriots were able to find space behind the flat defender on multiple occasions, and this is a fairly common adjustment, as safety Jeremy Chin gives the signal while stepping down, meaning he'll take the flats, and the corner is now responsible for the deep third, so basically just cover 3 weak buzz, if you want to make me feel like I wasted half an hour with a mech call, so man wherever he goes on the backside. Chin is forced to widen with the tight ends here as we let this roll. Lad understands that he can create a little bit of extra space for himself, but tilting inside before rolling out to the sideline slows his pace a little bit, and Herbert stops him in that window before the flat defender can get back underneath it, or the corner can pass off his assignment, and it goes for 19 yards. Next one, 2nd and 4, Raiders blitz this week's at linebacker, and play cover 1 behind it. Not much to draw up here. The only real option for Justin is this quick out route from the slot at the top of the screen. But it's a long throw, and the left tackle kinda gets pushed into the quarterback's lap. So instead, he decides to pull it down. Bad Russian discipline up front leaves the backs at B-gap wide open, and he picks up 12 yards himself. This scramble on 3rd and 8 is a lot more interesting, as the Chargers stick with the 10 personnel grouping, putting McConkey as the number 2 in a little yo-yo motion, but he does move 1 spot inside. In the stack now with 2nd round rookie Trey Harris. Basically this functions like levels to the field once more, with this little angle element with the switch release by number 2 and 3 again. And they have a backside glance plus the swing route by the back. The Raiders end up switching to another middle of the field close structure, only this time it's cover 3. And the boundary safety cannot pick up any trash coming across the field, while the linebackers are pretty stagnant to muddy this up after they drop out Devin White from his 5-man surface. Vegas does run a twist to the right side, but it's pricked up, and theoretically there are still 2 gaps open, so I like the decision to just take off out the middle, both linebackers occupied, and then he puts a sick crossover move on White to get to the sticks. Watch it one more time from the end zone view. He decides that it's a little too crowded to force this ball over the middle, and as he takes off here, he puts number 45 on skates. Love it. Before on 2nd and goal, the Raiders do bring White as part of a 3-3-5 zone, with a 5-man rush involving the linebacker on his little inside twist, where the 3 technique crosses the guard's face on a stunt, while they drop off the nose tackle. The Chargers do have 6 blockers inside, as they have the rookie running back on a token run fake into the blitz pickup, but from a route distribution perspective, this isn't optimal, as they basically have Mills to the twin side, with a drag route the opposite way, and the tight on a chip release into the flats. That's why I would generally dictate for the quarterback to go with the ball here. Yet after Herbert hitches up into that space that the defense is a little bit softer at now, having dropped at the guy directly over the center, once again he takes advantage of bad rush lane discipline, with White spinning inside on the back. Justin scrambles out to the right. Keenan Allen, having been with him for almost the entirety of the quarterback's career, recognizes that he needs to run the end line with him, and now check out this start towards the back pylon. That is beautiful. We have to flip things around for this one. As you see more clearly here, number 69 actually lined up initially in a 2-eye alignment to the inside shade of the guard, but he directly attacks the center before bailing out. Check out the hitch up to erase both angles off the edges, into that soft spot in the pocket, recognizes the linebacker going inside, and now it's time to make a play. Love it. And this has been a huge piece to Herbert's game this season, as you can probably tell by now. Less robotic overall, taking advantage of his athleticism, finding voided rush lanes, extending plays in and out of the pocket. He's added a new dimension to how he plays the position, or at least has made it a more prevalent one. Chargers go 3 and out next, as QJ does the exact opposite of what we saw from McConkey earlier, not tempering an in-cut to basically settle down between zone defenders on 3rd down. But when they get the ball with just under 5 minutes left in the first half, they don't mess around, and Johnston makes up for that last mistake. Here he is at the bottom of the screen, with that narrow trip set the other way. They'll have another soft run fake with the back, only this time he's basically crossing with the tight end on a delayed release. And what's really going on downfield is that we have another Mills concept pretty much, so this deep crossing route and a dig behind it, with the 2 wide receivers at the top, and QJ now, instead of occupying the deep middle safety in cover 3, stems as if he was going to the post once more, only to break out to the corner at like 15 yards. The cornerback passes it off, thinking he has to pick up one of these crossers. Safety tries to stay over the top of it all. Herbert almost crow hops into this one as he catches him leaning the wrong way, and lays it perfectly into the bucket for number 1 on a 60-yard touchdown. Love this next one, snap 2 of half 2, and the Bolts again are in 2x2 with 4 wide receivers, little stack at the bottom. Pre-snap you have 2/2 here and 3/2 to the field. Theoretically the Raiders could bring this inside shaded nickel on a blitz off the edge and play cover 0 behind it, but number 30's posture doesn't really indicate that, both linebackers not in a particularly aggressive stance either, so with how wide the safeties already are, it's highly unlikely they're involved in some kind of rotation at the snap, and we get straight up cover 2, with this corner potentially being in a sink technique. LA meanwhile has like a wrap route at the bottom and run a stick concept to the field, meaning the numbers are basically even again with how this coverage disperses, and now you're kind of running these routes into traffic with the linebackers dropping out. So instead, when this field side corner steps down just a little bit, Herbert shows zero hesitation, finding this hole shot behind him, short of the clouding safety to Trey Harris for a 24-yard gain. Vegas basically concedes a slant to Harris on the ensuing 3rd and long when he blitzed the only middle of the field defender, which leads to this 4th and 2. 20 personnel once more with Matlock in his offset wing alignment to the right. They motion him across and then back, directly into a 7-man pass pro, with a token run fake towards it and a full line slide the opposite way. QJ is pulling the corner on the backside alert, which should also draw the eyes of the post safety, but really they're trying to pull up the 2nd level here and then work these 2 crossing receivers behind it. The Raiders do bite hard on the run fake, but then they'll haul ass to get underneath these routes again. Divine Diablo, in particular here number 11, does a great job of finding McConkey on the shallow cross. So Herbert has to reset, wait for an extra beat, and then throw it in front of the old inside thumper Landon Roberts, who's typically off the field in passing situations, as they catch him in space against Keenan on the dig. Let's flip this around so you can actually see the backfield action. And then Justin actively turn down the initial read and make a great decision to attack the open space between the 2 hook defenders, setting up a chip shot field goal. This next one is simply a great indication of the maturity in Herbert's game. We've now seen him make a bunch of big time throws where he just catches a squatting corner or safety shaded 2 for one way. So when the Chargers go play action on a couple of first downs, the Raiders make sure they gain enough depth, only it also affords a ton of room to the running back Najee Harris here on the check down in the flats, who gets 11 in this case as he turns this up. When Vegas brings 6 here on a 2nd and long, Justin simply takes the plus leverage throw with Ladd as the number 2 with a cushion from the safety to help get them close once again. And lastly, they move the chains once more here, as the Chargers keep the tight end in protection, but the hook defenders once more afford too much space between and in front of them to Keenan, who's going to run a button hook in front of them. Herbert hits him and they move the chains once more. Even when LA couldn't really run the ball to bleed out the clock, if you're given a quarterback of this caliber these types of pre-snap looks, he's simply going to pick you apart, as Justin is currently on pace for the highest EPA per play, success rate, and basically any other meaningful metric of his career. And that's definitely a worry of mine with these Chargers. Can they have a reliable enough ground game to not be pushed into these defined dropback settings? Does the defense at least have to respect the threat of play action? And can they continue to take pressure off an O-line that is needed to shuffle things around a little bit? The early results are excellent, because they have a robot on the center who has oiled up some of the stiffer joints that have held him back in the past, using his legs more as a play extend than run himself, while being able to deliver any throw in the book. If the defense can play with as much confidence and aggression from that trust in just the scheme as we saw in week 2, they could finally be a real contender in the AFC, as they're already in the lead for the West by themselves, with wins over 2 division foes. Let's see if the Bolts can shock some people.